Hello and welcome to this edition of Talking SUPs. In this episode, we're going to be getting the officer's perspective on the plastic promise and council's fight against single-use plastics. And to go through this, we have Catherine Hunter, who is an education officer with Mid and East Antrim Borough Council. Catherine, you're very welcome to this edition of Talking SUPs.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So Catherine, first question I have for you is, how important is tackling single-use plastics for councils?
Well, for Mid and East Antrim Borough Council, we take the challenge of tackling single-use plastics very, very importantly. And, we acknowledge that we'll try and reduce it where we can, but also, eliminate it as well where it's possible to do so. Because we recognise there is a need for plastic for certain things that we do in council effectively. We're very familiar with the waste hierarchy in council and, where you can avoid plastics in the first place, that's always preferable. And obviously reduce, reuse, recycle, and then responsible disposal of plastics as well, which is really important to us as a council. In terms of, the position of a council, we're also very mindful of any new legislations and things that come along and council's responsibility to adhere to those legislations. So I'm sure we'll get into it, but we've responded to various consultations from DERA and DEFRA and so forth. And that's really for us to, act as a leadership role for our residents and for businesses and people in the borough, really to be a leader to show them how to manage plastics responsibly and really to let them know all the information we can as well. But we understand it's really the misuse of single-use plastics that is the real concern. And many of our residents have approached us about this. And, we really listen to our residents and try to advise them correctly. And over the last number of years, especially very, very recently, we've had so many more queries from the public, particularly around single-use plastics. So we've answered those queries and we really, really look forward to working with partner organisations across Northern Ireland to help to eliminate or reduce them where possible.
Brilliant. And obviously, I know Mid and East Antrim were obviously a signatory to the plastic promise. You were one of the first out of the traps on that. So how important was making a public declaration like that, signing that, in your fight against the misuse of single-use plastics?
Well, whenever we first heard about the plastic promise, I have to say there was quite a stir in our council and we were really delighted that Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, approached us about this. And, we had a quick look online and we saw the many, many organisations that already signed up to it and really what they were targeting, what they were trying to achieve. And we felt we were very well placed to join, that leaderboard and to basically show our commitment to eliminating and reducing single-use plastic as well. And not only that, obviously I'm a council officer, but we have to take reports, to our elected members. So we drafted a report and took it to our Direct Services Committee and just such an easy unanimous vote. Every one of the elected members was on board to the plastic promise. Not only that, then our senior management team and our operational management team also, endorsed that as well, which has been really great for us as officers on the ground because it's been such a great process now that we can get things approved in council. To actually deliver on the ground change, to eliminate those plastics and to reduce single-use plastics as well.
That's brilliant, and it's good to know that it is actually such a good process to actually follow and to be able to get that moving as well. Now, obviously, one of the things we love, or I love about doing this here, because I'm a bit of a policy nerd and an initiative nerd, is many of the exciting things that councils are actually doing on the ground. So just wondering, could you walk us through, because we've heard from a couple of other council areas about what they're doing, could you walk us through what's going on in Mid and East Antrim and some of the things that you guys are doing on tackling the misuse of single-use plastics?
Yeah, certainly. I suppose in my line of work, we look internally first to see what we're doing in-house, because there's no point trying to, encourage behavioural change with our residents and businesses and so forth, unless we're doing it first. So if I can, I will just demonstrate a few examples of what we're doing internally. So most recently, we have entered into a contract with a business called Responsible Plastic Management. And they are basically an outfit that deliver a program on mapping out plastic use within your business. And obviously with us being a council, it'll be across our 13 service areas. But that really is a tool to look at plastic use, which includes single-use plastic, look at the volumes we use, how we use it, where we use it, how we manage sort of the end disposal of it as well. So that's going to be a really, really exciting tool for us to, create a baseline to understand how much we actually use as well. And from that, then we set annual objectives and targets within our environmental management system, and we're accredited to ISO 14001. And this year we included, a specific target on reducing single-use plastic as well. So again, it's showing internally how we're thinking along those lines. In terms of our staff, and I should say we have 880 staff in our council, that's not a small number. And if you think each one of those members of staff goes home, possibly, to a family, like we have such an influence on the wider community as well. But internally, we ensure we have recycling facilities for, those plastic items that we have to use basically as well. But we couple that with an engaging internal communications campaign as well, just to educate staff about plastic and single-use plastic and, what they can do to reduce the use of it. We've also given each of our staff an aluminium water bottle as well. Of course, it's Mid-East Antrim branded. And again, that's just to encourage people to use that choice rather than purchasing single-use plastics. And alongside that, then we are phasing out the use of the kind of water tanks that people use in offices as well. They're just not needed. They're really not needed in this day and age. And to couple that, then we did sampling of our drinking water within the facilities as well, just to ensure, it was up to standard, and it is. So really, there's no need for these water tanks as well. Also then within catering in our council, we have completely eliminated single-use plastic. And it's the first area in council where we can put our hands up and say, absolutely none left there, it's great. And that was off the back of the single-use plastic directive. We're aware that there's those 10 items are going to be banned in Northern Ireland in 2020. So we were kind of getting ahead of the game at this stage to eliminate those as well. And that's caused a bit of a ripple effect in council, and our events team are now also planning to reduce single-use plastics as well, and they've got a plan to do that as well. As well as an officer in council, we would sit on the Tackling Plastics working group as well with Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. And as you'll know, that's sharing best practice among councils and looking at gap analysis and things like that. So that's a really useful forum for us, as well as sitting on the Sustainable NI forum as well. And again, it's around sharing best practice. But one really useful thing from Sustainable NI was that we've learned about Northern Ireland Executive have now got a blueprint for reducing single-use plastic across their estate. And that was really heartening to hear, because, they're like our leader effectively. So it's kind of that trickle-down effect that, there's a leader there to show us how to do it. So it's given us that confidence as well, which has been fantastic. Okay. In terms of residents, then just looking outward, as I said, we do communication campaigns with our residents, and also we work to ensure there are bin provision things strategically around the borough. We're offering single source plastic bottle recycling across the borough as well, which is fabulous. And one really good example of how we're working with our communities is we did a pilot for the deposit return scheme in Whitehead, where we engaged 2,000 householders, and that effectively asked them to download a reward for waste app onto their phone, and they scanned kind of pre-labeled bottles that they purchased in their local Spar. They used the product and then placed that item into the recycling just for their normal curbside recycling with pricing. And effectively that demonstrated how the deposit return scheme could work. So we were delighted we're with the Northern Ireland Council that were selected to kind of showcase that working, and it was really, really positive. Also then we engage with our schools. We have 77 in Mid and East Antrim, and just educate them about, waste and recycling and so forth as well. But we're real focused on single-use plastics and the damage that can have on the natural environment as well. And also off the back of that, a lot more of our schools are asking to do litter picks and things, because they're just so much more aware of litter that's lying on the streets and then in the countryside. And from your own Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful litter compositional report that you produced in 2019-2020, we're aware, 71% of littered items is basically plastic. So there's a real recognition that that needs to stop as well. So we're really delighted to support all those groups as well across the borough.
You've already touched upon this, Catherine, but how has the culture changed within council when it comes to single-use plastic? What have you noticed from when you started and to where we are now on this?
It's a good question, because I'm in council, I'm into my 5th year now. So I'd say that's, a good time span to look at kind of behavioural change, from our staff as well. But I mentioned earlier, we've had a lot of queries from our residents about single-use plastic, but my own colleagues in council are continuously querying about single-use plastic and what alternative, products there are, what they can do to reduce single-use plastics. So we do educate them internally, and we would run things like lunchtime seminars and include things like single-use plastics as a topic. But also our procurement team approached us and asked for sustainable NI training, just around sustainable procurement, and that also included our capital works team as well. And it was just looking at how we procure products and services and to understand how to do that in the most sustainable way, which of course includes, the use of plastics as well. We've also our communications team in council have also just launched a new strategy whereby they are looking at things more sustainably as well. And just to give an example of that, our bin collection calendar are due to go out, for the start of April this year. And we just reviewed what we've done there. And not only are we using sort of recycled paper now, but they were delivered previously in plastic pouches, but we just thought, right, 58,000 households, that's 58,000 pieces of plastic. So there's just no way at all we could have stood over that. So, we've gone down the biodegradable pouch route instead now. So we're really pleased with that. But that's just an example of that new strategy, and that'll be for all communications now with the public as well.
That's brilliant. And again, it's those little changes that can make a big, when you multiply it out by 58,000, you can see what an impact that has. My last question for you, Catherine, is, you have mentioned this in some of your answers, is how engaged are local ratepayers in actually tackling this? Because we've as part of this series, we've spoken to councillors in some other areas, and they've spoken about the engagement they're getting in some of their areas. But what about yourself from the officer level? Are you seeing that in MEA about ratepayers, asking for this and wanting more action?
Yeah, like as I said earlier, I suppose the best way we can kind of, understand kind of the shift from our residents and kind of the focus on single-use plastics is through the number of queries we get in, really. So that can be through our elected members, or it can be through our inquiries webpage, or our waste help desk team as well. They would handle a lot of calls and a lot of queries as well from the public. But I just know from my own inbox, the number of queries that I get in from the public about single-use plastics has drastically increased over this last couple of years, and more so even the last couple of months as well. But we've also been approached by residents asking for, research into companies like TerraCycle, who would recycle those harder to recycle items like toothpaste tubes and, the food foil pouches and things like that. Because they genuinely want to know what more they can do or what else they can do to reduce their single-use plastic. So it's just great that we're continually challenged by our residents, to find a better solution, to these products as well. And another example is, obviously you'll know DAERA have recently announced the increase in the carrier bag levy to 25p, and that's effective from April this year. And again, the public have asked, well, what does this mean and what's that money going towards and things like that. So we do respond to that, and we're working with RAP to develop a communication campaign around that, specifically plastic bags and the plastic wrapping as well, and to let residents know where they can drop those off, collection points across the borough, and it's mainly the bigger kind of supermarkets and things. But also, as I've said about the litter picking, there's been such a huge increase from the public around that as well, because they do, tie it all together. They are consumers, so they're where people purchase single-use plastic items. They use them, consume them, and what happens to it after? Is it responsibly processed through, rice and recycling or through some other kind of processor? If it's littered, what happens to it, and how can we reduce that littering? So they really do see it. It's a really hot topic at the moment, and as I say, they do keep challenging us, which is really what we need, and that's what we like to hear from our ratepayers.
Brilliant. Catherine, thank you so much for giving us your perspective. It's brilliant to see so much phenomenal work going on in the Mid and East Antrim Borough Council area. So well done to yourselves. I know it's a big team up there making this happen, from elected representatives right the way through to yourselves. So thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us on Talking SUPs. And it's good to know that signing up to the Plastic Promise was so easy as well.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much, David, for having me.
Thank you.